In mythic battles, we have literal divine beings using every power, every move they possibly can to navigate their sovereign people to battle, utilizing every spell and cheap trick in the book to accomplish their own agenda. While many fall for the glory of battle, some rise, leaving you bewildered and excited for more. Their bloodlust becomes so contagious that sometimes you forget that you're not really there. Welcome to our new series, The Units of Mythic Battles. Hello and welcome to The Lighter the Darker. My name is Weston and today is the fourth episode of the series where we talk about the units that have astonished us and many others in the Lighter the Darker community. The units that people feel so passionate about that they can't help themselves from drafting dozens or even hundreds of times. Now, this is the first episode where we will start a new trend for this series, and I'm excited to tell you about it. After some reflecting, from now on, I've chosen to choose a unit from Pantheon and a unit from Ragnarok, at least for the majority and at least until Isvet is delivered. Also, now that we're getting several suggestions, which I am so grateful and excited about, I'm going to be taking a community suggestion for each episode, then pair it with a unit that I choose personally. For this episode, best friend of the channel, Andreas suggested Titans and Surt or Jormungand. The next episode, off the request of a new friend of the channel, the amazing Anders, I'm going to be putting Thor against Pan. Needless to say, I want to thank everyone for their encouragement and their suggestions. Please keep letting me know what you would like to see in this series. I think a nice and simple way to begin understanding these Titans is by looking at what makes them similar. First of all, both Titan and Jormungand cost 10 recruitment points, being the highest possible cost in mythic battles. Even most Titans only cost 8 RP. They share 2 talents, which is incredibly fascinating. Even each of their third and final talents are somewhat interchangeable. Both Torment and Terror are awfully alike, as we will discuss later. Additionally, both of these beasts boast a maximum attack of 10, as you will always ignore powers and talents that would allow you to roll any more than that. These two refuse to be bothered with their 9 defense. Then lastly, these two powerhouses start with 3 movement and 1 range. This far in the video, and especially if you've never operated these units, I'm sure you're thinking that these are nearly identical. But as we dive further into the mechanics, you will see that it is far from the truth. Yet to inform our imaginations, we must first admire Mythic Battle's take on these mythical nightmares. Typhon, with his wings included, stands taller than any other Titan. You see, in Greek mythology, Typhon has always been portrayed as a horrendous monster with large menacing wings. The Chalcadian black-figured Hydra slithers with its distinct and anthropomorphic snake legs. Monolith went even further, adding its own flavor. We end up with some abominable Cthulhu monkey chimera with the charm of some sketchy dude you see in an alley. Then, with the never-ending water serpent, Jormungand, As we will learn, this colossus is written to have grown as big as our known oceans. The sculpture reflects this with the somehow never-ending and forever looping look of its body. Intricate and mysterious runes are carved into its underbelly, like anyone would have any time to read before its deadly venom would hit their lungs. Although Typhon was born from Mother Earth herself, Titan Gaia, his paternal side doesn't necessarily constitute a person. The plains of Tartarus serve as both a deity and, strangely more so, as a setting we see in the stories. The location of Tartarus is actually somewhat of a bastille in Greek mythology, a prison in the deepest abyss of the underworld, mainly overseen by Kronos, and is largely featured in the recent Hades video games, whereas the deity side of Hades is barely spoken of. With his lineage, Typhon was almost destined to cause trouble. One of the major ways we see this is actually one of the earliest accounts we have of Typhon. You see that there's this poet named Hesiod. You could think of him like our boy Snorri. He wrote of Typhon directly attempting to rob Zeus over the rule of the cosmos itself. The mighty Zeus defeated the young Typhon with an explosive lightning strike, propelling the beast down to Earth and creating a nuclear-level blast, which many believe created Mount Etna in Sicily. Zeus sentenced Typhon to Tartarus, where we are left with this passage from Hesiod. Among them is he who lied in dread Tartarus, that enemy of the gods, Typhon, with his 100 heads. Once the famous Sicilian cave nurtured him, but now the sea-grit cliffs above Cumae and Sicily too lie heavy on his shaggy chest, and the pillar of the sky holds him down. Snow-covered Aetna, year-round nurse of bitter frost, from those whose inmost caves belch forth the purest streams of unapproachable fire. In the daytime, her rivers roll out a fiery flood of smoke, while in the darkness of the night, the crimson flame hurls rocks down towards the plain of the sea with a crashing roar. That monster shoots up the most terrible jets of fire. It is marvelous wonder to see, and a marvel even to hear about when men are present. Such a creature is bound beneath the dark and the leafy heights of Aetna and beneath the plain, and his bed scratches and goads the whole length of his back, stretched out against it. Going over the history of Jormungand, I want to say that part of the reason I chose him is because he informs some of the stories we've already talked about on the series. See, my boy Jay is also the son of both Loki and Angrboda. Just like his siblings, Fenrir and Hel, Odin knew that the offspring of such evil could not remain in Midgard. If you remember, Odin commanded that Fenrir be chained, whereas Odin saw more tact and soul in Hel. He graced her with stewardship over the underworld. And for the serpent, Odin ventured to the edge of Midgard, where an unfathomably endless ocean encircles this realm of ours, occupying the circular ocean that he was able to surround the entire planet. He bit down on his tail, awaiting the day of Ragnarok, where his jaw will unclench. Then, according to our dear boy Snorri Sturluson, this will cause tsunamis and an overwhelming amount of destruction as water and land become indistinguishable. That's not all. Jormungand will also unleash a toxic and deadly poison. Whoever might even get a whiff will perish within moments. He then joins his brother Fenrir and the sons of Musapel. The three make their way to Vigrid, where Jay clashes in battle with none other than the god of thunder Thor. What makes this so beautifully poetic is something I have not mentioned yet. See, this is one of the many times Thor has actually encountered Jormungand. which I'm looking forward to detailing in the next episode. Although Thor knew this is where he would find Jay, doesn't make the battle any easier. As he slashed at Jormungand's body, he knew the only way to take down this building-sized serpent was to go for the head. Throughout some maneuvering, Thor successfully triumphs over Jormungand through what I would like to call a lightning guillotine. As Thor takes no more than 9 paces to join his other brothers and sisters in battle, Jormungand's poison finally sets in. Before he could speak, the god of thunder perished through martyrdom. This angle should work a little bit better. Although the lore behind these characters are both deeply interesting, I want to talk about how they function in the game. And there's another major similarity that I forgot to speak about. See, both of these units can easily attack or destroy your own team if you're not careful. With their self-protective abilities and their unfathomable strength, I would easily classify both of these units as forward attackers. If you don't know what I mean by that, go ahead and check out our last few episodes where I loosely create classes for units. Starting with Jormungand, he is both aquatic and huge, determined by these symbols here. Huge units can never enter areas with only 1 or 2 capacity. When a huge unit enters an area, it is immediately considered full, and the last thing that makes them special is they cannot be forced to move via other people's powers and talents. Then aquatic units gain +1 movement in water only if they stay in water terrain for that whole movement action. Now, I'll tell you that water is somewhat scarce on maps, making the aquatic talent less powerful, unless that is he can make water. We can see here that Jormungand has block, which restricts other enemies from making any run, walk, or sending actions in your area. That is, unless they have block. Next, Jormungand has Mighty Throw, which means he can throw units depending on how many blank dice he rolls when attacking and what kind of unit he wants to throw. And lastly, he has Terror, which causes an attacking unit to have 1 less offense when attacking Jormungand in a melee circumstance. The Tidal Wave ability is an active one, and it costs 2 Art of War cards. Going over his first ability, it says choose up to 3 areas in Jormungand's surroundings. Place a Tidal Wave token in each of these areas. The terrain type changes to water. The owner gets these tokens back at the end of Jormungand's next activation. The terrain type then reverts back to its previous terrain type. The next ability is also an active ability, and it is called Deadly Venom. Very thematic. At the beginning of Jormungand's activation, make an X dice range 0 area attack. Tidal Wave is a mixed power. On one hand, creating water can be so potent, especially when it can help Jormungand move further, which only gets more helpful the less health he resides. This ability is active and affects 3 separate areas, which is another great feat. On the other hand, we have the downsides. It is insanely costly at 2 Art of War cards per time you want to use it. The terrain reverts at Jormungand's next activation, which makes it difficult to stick to a strategy. Tidal Wave deals no damage, and for the majority of Jormungand's life, it's going to be impossible taking advantage of that extra movement. Deadly Venom, another perfectly themed power. Great job, Monolith. This is an active power that happens automatically as long as you don't start with a complex action. It will attack anyone and everyone in his area, including allies. You may easily make the mistake of sacrificing one of your units to get Jormungand where he needs to be. Typhon is a flying character, which gives him access to 2 additional complex actions, Fast Flight and Aerial Attack. We can also see that he has Torment, which forces his opponents to have one less defense when he attacks them in a melee setting. Additionally, he has Mighty Throw and Block, just like Jormungand. For clarity's sake, let's look at Typhon's second power first. It is called Tempest, and it costs 2 Art of War cards. Declare this power at the start of Typhon's activation. Tempest counts as 2 simple actions. Move up to 3 areas. Typhon does not have to stop if he enters an area containing an enemy unit. When Typhon has finished moving, make an X dice area attack on every area he moved into, starting with 8 dice. And then we have Psychopath, which is a permanent ability. It states, if Typhon is in play and does not use Tempest, then at the start of his activation, he must either discard an Art of War card or perform these actions. If it's possible, Typhon walks towards the closest unit and attacks it, friendly or enemy. And then if that unit is your unit, your enemy would roll for you. Tempest is an extremely expensive, powerful, and complicated ability that will be on your mind for the majority of the time you activate Typhon. Very similar to the Charge ability from Elkthanir, the Minotaur, and many others. Typhon walks around with destruction at every step. Logically, you'd want to do everything in your power to avoid the brunt of that. Well, that brings us to that other power, Psychopath. This is that heavy similarity I spoke about, where you can easily wipe out a friendly unit. Because of this, for whatever remaining recruitment points you have drafting Typhon, you need to spend these on troops or heroes or monsters that come with a lot of AOWs. There's always the route where you could just let Typhon do his thing, but that doesn't sound very strategic. Maybe if you want to play without much thought. These are the counters I have chosen for this episode. When you're facing 10 RP Titans, both with block, and one of them being immovable, you really need to get creative. To bring down a Titan, you of course might need a Titan. None other than Typhon's mother, Gaia. Her powers are centered around these root tokens. These bad boys are laid down for free as an active ability. Any enemy unit who runs into this token immediately ends their activation. The next time you activate the trapped character, it takes away at least one of their movement. Depending on how many root tokens are on the board, Gaia regains health accordingly, which she will desperately need when either facing her son or the big snack. Stalling these Titans are the name of the game, and because both T and J are both forward attackers and divinities, it's almost certain their objective will be slaying your divinity. Having a way to defend yourself through either high stats or vitality regeneration will only help you further. Lastly, if you're able to make your opponent discard AOWs, they will more likely end up in a situation where they attack themselves. Talking about stats, Utgard Loki's are quite low, but his Master of Challenges ability lets him choose the full attack and defense stats of his opponents, making the Titans feel like they're facing themselves. He also gives you the ability to discard unwanted cards. This then forces your opponent to discard the same number as you. Persephone will help you rip away some movement from either of the Titans. Then if you're lucky, you could even force your opponent to discard a divinity activation card. You see, her Queen of the Underworld ability makes everyone discard the top of their deck. Lastly, Aphrodite requires that anyone who targets her by an attack or an offensive power must first discard an Art of War card. Then if she's attacked, the attacker obtains a Vengeance token, making it even more difficult to take her down. Well, this is me wrapping up episode 4 of the Units of Mythic Battles. I have put so much work into this episode, so I really hope that you enjoyed, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Weston, and this has been The Lighter the Darker. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and take care.